All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, everyone's having a wonderful day. You guys had an amazing weekend. So, I'm here on Instagram, and I've been getting a number of questions about starting out as a photographer, retoucher, editor, where to find images if you're not able to get out today and do shoots like some of us are doing, on a weekly basis. One of the things that I would recommend if you are using Photoshop, Photoshop has a resource that is built in. There are a number of different ways you can find content for your practicing. I mean, there's Pixels, there's, any number of different websites out there where you can download reasonably high quality images. Most likely they won't be raw files. They'll most likely be, relatively decent JPEGs. So if we go over let's go over here to Photoshop. And if you're in Photoshop, you can just click here on File. And you can scroll down to where you see Search Adobe Stock. Click on that. It'll open your browser. And then at that point, you can go over to the Adobe Stock site and start searching for whatever it is you're looking for. In this first tab, you want to select Free. So you have images, video, audio, templates, 3D, free, premium, and editorial. Free is what you're looking for, especially if you're looking for images, but you can also use this to search for video or vector graphics or audio. I mean, any number of things you can search for. But for our purposes, we're going to be searching for photos. So most of you are interested in modeling or editorial, or you're doing fashion work. That's your goal. So that's kind of where you want to start. Now in this live, I have provided a link where you guys can download some actions that I created personally, and they're free. You can use them in Photoshop. Just all you have to do is just load them, and I'll show you exactly how those work. But for now, we're just going to do a quick search. As you can see here, I have modeling already selected, but if this wasn't pre-selected, you would just go here to your search. And say, for instance, modeling may not be what you're looking for. Let's just say girls as an example. So then girls will show up, of all different ages and, different, types of photos, depending on what it is that you're looking for. Now you can scroll down here on this little tab that you see over here to the left, where you can determine what you wanted to search for. So in this selection, I have images. I have under subcategories all. And then I want it to be horizontal. So I'll select horizontal. And there's a depth of field slider you can select. You can include or exclude people. You can choose between pixels and megapixels. So this just further narrows down your search for whatever it is that you're looking for. So originally we were looking at models. So we're going to go back and use modeling as our criteria for our search. And then here you start to see, traditional images that we normally would associate with, glamour modeling for editorials, fashion, makeup, things like that. There will be some things mixed in that, don't really make any sense, but you kind of get the idea. So as we scroll down, we see some examples of photographers, male models, female models, plus size models, even some fitness models. And then you can narrow that down to fitness if that's what you're looking for, or swimwear, or whatever the case it is. So earlier today, I was doing a live and I was talking about how easily you can utilize these actions to speed up your workflow. And one of the images that I used, I got from here, and I don't remember exactly how I found it, so I'm going to assume it was, I don't think I searched for plus size, but we're just going to do plus size just to see what comes up. And I think what I actually did was I selected, you can go here where it says find similar, and you can drag an image into this little box if you have an example image, and then it'll search for similar images. So let's go over to my Finder and Downloads, and this was the original image. So I'm going to drag that image into, well, let's try it again. I'm going to drag that image into this little space here and see if it'll pull up the same image. Yeah, so it's getting pretty close. So this is kind of what I was looking for demonstration purposes on our utilizing my action. So if we scroll down, you can see different examples of, plus size models, some fitness, some, obviously they were posed. So, I mean, you can just kind of go through here and look for whatever it is that, you want to work on. But what I was looking for was someone with, challenging skin color, stretch marks, things like that, that might be an issue or maybe a concern to a specific client. And they want to make sure that you're able to go in and then edit those photos and give them the look that they're expecting to receive in your deliverables. Now, everyone won't want 100% completely blurred out skin and every little imperfection removed, but you will have some that's exactly what they want. So I'm going to show you an example of two different images. One, that I used here, and I'll show you exactly how I got there. So this image here is the before, and this is the after. So again, I'm going to walk you guys simply enough through exactly what I did. So I just brought the image into Photoshop, into Camera Raw, and I zoomed in to see exactly what I was working with. So I went ahead and took a look at see what auto would give me. I'm not really a fan of how much overexposure is getting there in some of these areas. So I'm going to leave that pretty much as it is. I do want to try to adjust the white balance. So let's see what our white balance is giving us. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So I'm just going to select from the background. Now, something I wanted to bring to your attention. If you see down here, it says that this image is 21 megabytes. So if we go back over to my Finder, the same image, and we look at it in, we look at it here, it says that this image is 5.5 megabytes. So Photoshop has a tendency to enhance the image somewhat. It's going to increase the image size. And then you can further increase that size by just right-clicking and going down here to enhance. And then it will run this little algorithm here, and then you can just click on enhance, and then it'll generate a higher resolution version of that same image that you guys will be able to edit. If you want something higher resolution than the 21 megapixels that's showing here. So if we look at this image, now this version of it is 84 megapixels. So it just depends on which one you want to go with. So for the purposes of this video, or this live, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the larger megapixel image. It is at 300 dpi. It is coming in as 16-bit. Now, I have my Camera Raw set that any images that I bring in, it automatically converts them to 16-bit. But in your situation, you may be working with something that if you're bringing in just from a downloaded file, it's most likely going to be 8-bit. So we're going to go ahead and open this. And then I'm going to show you simply enough how easily you can set up your Camera Raw to bring all your images in at 16-bit. So if you go up here to File, you want to go to Preferences, and you can just go to General. So here under Camera Raw Preferences, so you're going to go to File Handling, Camera Raw Preferences, click on Camera Raw Preferences, and under where it says Space, you want your Adobe RGB 1998, and then your depth, you want to set that from 8-bit to 16-bit. And then that will, whenever you bring an image in, it'll automatically convert it to 16-bit if, for instance, that's something that you want. But that's what I have set up for my Photoshop. Ideally, if you're going to be editing an image like this, you want the highest possible resolution. And as you can see here, what we're working with, I mean, there's, there's a number of imperfections that, again, like I said, it might be something that, you want to start working on. So normally what I would do here is that I would duplicate this layer, Command J, and then I would go in with something like my spot healing brush, and I would just go in and start trying to eliminate some of these imperfections. So I would just go in and just find areas, and then I would clone out those areas for the most part, just to try and clean up, some of those inconsistencies. And as you can see, the spot healing brush does a pretty good job. You could also use the clone stamp tool. You could use any number of tools to try and get rid of some of these, if that's what you have to work with. Just by using your frequency separation, you can get a lot of these, you can remove a lot of these imperfections without ever having to, if you're in a rush. Okay, so let me rephrase that. If you're in a rush and you want to really quickly, clean up an image or something like that, this is another way that you can go about doing it using frequency separation. So I'm just going to go ahead and just merge these two, just so we start off with just one image. And then we're going to go up here to the frequency separation actions that I provide for you guys. So you have an 8-bit and a 16-bit. So if you click on the 16-bit, what it's going to do first is going to set your Gaussian blur amount. So you can just zoom out till you see your subject, pick an area that you want to focus. So the default I have set here is 9.5. So if you go to a smaller number, your image will be blurrier at the end of the result. If you go to a higher number than that, then your image is going to maintain far more of the texture of the original image. So in this case, we actually want to blur the skin. So what we want to do is bring that number down so that we have a lower radius. So you can start somewhere about 4.0 up to about maybe 5, somewhere in that range. And then you can then further, improve upon this as you go. So we're going to go through this relatively quickly. So we're just going to click OK. Then the next thing is going to happen is this little pop-up is going to pop up to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing here and what this action is designed to do for you. Just click Continue. All right, so another thing that you have here is a helper layer, and you can turn that on or off. All it is just a black and white layer that allows you to see the difference in the transitions between the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. So as you're, mixing these colors, you want to be able to see them clearly so that you're not mixing, highlights with shadows. But in situations like this, you really are trying to create uniformity, a harmony in all of the colors. So we're going to turn off our high layer and we're going to turn off our tone layer. And we're just going to focus on our lower layer here, which we're going to be using for mixing these colors. So we're just going to grab our mixer brush. And my mixer brush right now, the wet is set at 5. The load is at 75. Mix is 90. And the flow is, I'm going to bring that up to 100. Okay, so you could start off with a small brush. Make sure that it is a soft round brush that you're working with. So when you click on your brushes, make sure you're using a soft round brush. It should have been pre-selected for you with the action, but just in case you're using it in a different manner, just always take a look at your brush. And if you're using a Wacom tablet, your pin sensitivity is going to be a big factor in working with this. If you're not working with that and you're working with a mouse or a touchpad, you can get a similar effect without, it won't be as precise as working with Wacom, but you'll get pretty close. So we're just going to get in here and we're going to just start softening and mixing some of these colors. And you can see right off as I mix, and I'm not trying to be, precise with this. I just want you guys to see how this works. So we're just going to use this as a really good example. Just go in and you can mix. I'm going to increase the size of the brush pretty large, and so it'll give me more coverage as I go through here, because I just want to speed this up. And I'm focusing on creating harmony in the skin and hiding a lot of the underlying imperfections in the color tone. So now this is a shadowed area, so I would kind of mix that together. And then, because you want to maintain some dimension, you don't want it to be a flat image. So you want to be really careful as you go through here. You know, take your time, and you should be able to start to see already, just with what we've done so far, you know, what we're getting here. Now you want to be careful of patterns, reoccurring patterns. So you want to swirl, make sure you're really mixing your colors and get a good blending of those colors so that they all blend well together. And that's my goal with this one. Just to blend those pretty nicely. Go here along the edge of the leg. Okay. So if we look at it before and after, that's before, that's after. Turn off our helper. And then we do a before and after. You see, that's a huge difference. And we really haven't done that much yet. So I'm just going in here and I'm seeing a few more little areas that I might want to touch upon. But we're just going to move along. So here on the other leg, we're going to do basically the same thing. We're just blending all these colors together. Be careful of hard lines, like, you know, here with her underwear. You don't want to blend that into your colors. But we're just going to speed along. And here we go. So you're seeing already the effect. And this is a darker part of the skin here, so I'm going to, you know, try and blend that more together without mixing any of the highlights into it. So I just want to create a uniformity, a harmony in this part of the skin. And many times in a professional shoot, you know, this will be achieved by makeup. You know, I've worked with fitness models. I've worked with, you know, individuals, you know, who will hire a makeup artist to come in and do complete body makeup, you know, airbrushing, something like that. I went too far with that. So let's go back so that you can, you know, get an even skin tone. And I mean, that's a possibility as well. You know, it depends on your client's budget and the time, the amount of time they want to put into the shoot. But this gives you one more tool to your toolbox to be able to go in and clean up a lot of these issues if this is something that your client wants. So as you see here, we're just speeding along. Now, like I said, I am seeing some patterns, and that's probably because of the fact that I'm not using my Wacom. I'm just using my fingers on the trackpad of the MacBook. But if you're using your Wacom tablet or whatever tablets you're using, you're going to get a much better result because you have a little bit more control because you have that pen pressure working in your favor. So, and the reason why I'm not using my tablet, if someone is curious, is because I'm too lazy to go upstairs and get it. So, just going to blend that. So, mix these together. And there's a few little spots, you know, that I would definitely go over and spend a little bit more time on. And I would zoom in a little bit better just to see. But most of the time when you're doing this, you don't want to be too close, too zoomed in, because then you'll start to micro edit and it'll take forever, and then you'll wind up repeating the same steps over and over again. You know, you just want to get to a point that you're happy with. And I'm just seeing some tracing lines. That's why I'm just going over this again. You know, also very important is to have a good monitor so that you're able to really see all of these little imperfections in real time, so you won't wind up with a surprise at the end, you know, when you get ready to deliver to your client and it looks completely different to them on their phone or their tablets or, you know, whatever they're viewing these images on than what you saw. So let's just zoom all the way out. Okay, so this is before and this is after, with just a few steps, to get to this point. So let's say you're happy with that for the most part. Another thing that you can do just to improve upon the color and the tone that you have, mixed to get a better result, stay on your lower level layer and then come over here and you're going to select your lasso tool. And then you're just going to come in and just start making selections around. I'm just going to do the whole leg just to speed this up. But normally you would just go in and you pick a specific area that you want to soften. You may want to soften the shadows more than the highlights, or the highlights more than the shadows, but this just kind of gives you an overview of how to do it. So you've made your selection, then you're going to go up to your filters, to blur, Gaussian blur. And remember, we started off with 5. So what we want to do now is we want to triple this amount of the radius. So we're going to bring this up to, say, 15. I'm just going to type 15. And then that's going to further blur the skin. And then you can go in and make more selections, or make a better selection than I just did there. And then we're going to go up. And then one of the things you want to look at here is your feather. I have my feather set to 25, so you can be somewhere between 15 and 25 and you should be fine, because that's going to still blur out some of the areas on the outside as well. So then once you're here, you can just right click. You can just right click here and then choose Gaussian blur, and then it'll apply the blur again. And then if you miss an area, just go in and pick that area and do basically the same thing. And then just go in and pick your different areas, especially where you see inconsistencies in the colors. You can further blur those out, like right up here. And you may not have to do the entire image. You may just want to pick certain parts of the image that you want to blur out a little bit more. Maybe right around the belly button here for her. Okay, so that's where we are so far. So again, if we look at our before and our after, that's come a long way. So then the next thing I would normally do is I would create a stamp layer, Command Option E, and that's going to give you a stamp layer. So this layer is everything that's below the frequency separation stamped onto one layer above. So if you turn this off, it should look exactly the same as what you see below it. Now, what this one is going to do is allow you to do further editing, and if something goes wrong, you can always, revert back to your frequency separation. But now you have this layer. So one of the things that I want to address is some of the lines and the curvature of the body and cleaning up, the angles of the body a little bit, just a little bit. So I would go into Filter, Liquify, and some of these things will occur not just because of a person's size or something like that. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you're working with people that are not models, so they don't always know where their body is in real space. As we're looking at them through a camera lens or something like that, we can see exactly where we want them to be, but it doesn't mean that, they're able to achieve that. And then sometimes as photographers, we do a really, really poor job of, explaining exactly what it is we're looking for. So with this, I just want to go in and just clean up little things, little tiny little imperfections. And I can just kind of drag along this line here just to straighten this out a little bit. And of course you can zoom in even further to see, you can get in really close. And you can look at all the little details, and then you can just bring your push tool down to a size that's going to be, appropriate for that little area. And then you can just go in and just see there, just push that, pull, and just even those out. And then this little area here, I'm just going to push that, just nudge it a little bit. And increase the brush size a little bit more here. just to round that out. So I could slim this leg here a little bit, but it's not really necessary. But I'll do it just for the sake of the live. Okay, so we're just doing a little bit of contouring. I usually adjust the panty lines a little bit just because it helps with the shape. So if you can get in there and just kind of adjust those a little bit, you're creating that. What you're looking for is kind of that V shape. So you just want to enhance those lines a little bit. Give it a natural shape. Okay, so we're good there. So now we can do a before and after. Before and after. So that looks pretty good. So if we look at, where we started, that's our before and that's our after. So all of this was achieved for the most part with just one action, and that's the 16-bit action that I used here. But again, like I said, if you're using a 30-bit, an 8-bit image, you can just use the 8-bit action. All of these are free. So you get the skin smoother. This uses a noise filter. You can use that sometimes, but I would not. I would stay more toward the frequency separation. Then once you've achieved that, now the last thing you might want to do is go in and do a little bit of dodging and burning. So we'll just click on our dodge and burn action. This little instruction thing will pop up. And then we can choose, where you want to dodge, where you want to burn. Now, what you could do also is just come up here and you want to select black and white, and you could just drag this above the folder, and then like before, you're going to crush the reds a little bit, and then expand the yellow, just so you can see where the shadow and the highlight is. So that's going to show you where you want to burn and where you want to dodge. So if we go to our dodge, here's our brush. Our opacity is at 100. Our flow is at 8. I would actually bring that down to maybe about 2%. And then check our brush. Make sure we're on a soft round brush. And then you could just make your brush as big as you need to for whatever it is you're going to do. So I'm just going to dodge here on her leg. I'm just going to add a little bit of light. Then maybe here on the thigh. Just a little bit. Right here in this little contour. So I'm just looking for the areas that are already, there's some light. Then I go to my burn, and then I want to apply, that just in the areas that I know that should be dark. And remember, you're only using 2%, so, you can go over this a couple of times if you need to, just to see. So if we turn off our helper layer, and then we turn off our dodge and burn, you should see just a little pop. That's all you're looking for. Now, of course, you can go much further with this. I mean, you can, like when I'm working with fitness models, you really go more intense with your dodging and burning because you're really trying to show off those muscles. So in this case, I'm just trying to maintain somewhat of a shape on the body here. So we turn off our dodge and burn, and we can come all the way back down here. Option click on your background layer, the little eyeball, and that's your before. Click on it again, that's your after. So there we go. So overall, that gives you an idea of how these actions work and how you can utilize them in your workflow. Now I have one more image that I downloaded that I want to test. So this image here, we're going to bring it in. And it looks pretty good. I mean, it's a 29 megapixel image. It looks pretty sharp. It shows that it's 16, well, it's 16-bit because that's what I have it set at. But It's 300 DPI. You can click on your auto just to see what it's going to do, and I actually like that better. That's before, and that's after clicking on auto. So I actually like that better because it gives you a little bit more contrast. Now, of course, you can still test to see, what the white balance is set at. So I'm just going to click on the background here and get a good reading of the white balance, and I can see here in my histogram the exposure looks pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this image. So as we zoom in, I see a few little imperfections that I would normally go in and correct, like flyaway hairs, or she has really good skin, so I don't see a lot that I would do here. I mean, there's like a few little blemishes on the skin, but most of that's probably just from the sun, living a life of fun. Now here she has a little bit of dry, patchy skin, and we'll address all of that in the edit. So let's zoom out. This is a really large image, so I'm going to crop it. I'm going to switch this to 8-bit, and I'm going to run the 8-bit action so I can show you the difference. So here's an 8-bit action, and as you scroll in here, zoom out, we can zoom in on the face. As you can see, at 10, the radius is already enough to really blur out most of the features. So you could probably just leave this as at the default and just click OK. And then here it's going to pop up your helper layer. So now you can just really crush your reds, maybe adjust the yellows just a little bit so you can see the definition in the muscles. So this is a good example of what I would be doing if I was working with maybe a fitness model or something like that. So, okay, so we're going to turn this layer off. So now what we have is still on, is our helper layer, and then our low layer down here. So we're going to go in, we're going to grab our mixer brush. We have it set at 5%. Load is at 75, mix is 90, and flow is at 100. So we're going to zoom in pretty close to the face. Close the actions. And we're just going to start mixing her skin. So we're going to bring the brush size down to about the size of the area we'll be working in. And we're just going to go in here and just start mixing those. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. So it's a highlight there. It's a transition of a highlight. This is more of a shadowed area. You will be increasing and decreasing the size of your brush as you go. I do recommend that, especially if you're not using a tablet, where your pen sensitivity will have an effect. So let's get here on the chin. Then we're going to go a little bit larger. I'm going to blend these colors up here a little bit. So I'm just mixing these as we go. That's a highlighted area. So is this. So some of these you definitely want to work to preserve them as much as possible, especially when you're working with fitness models, because their muscle density is the definition of their muscles is one of the most important things for them in these shoots, and they really want to emphasize the shape of their muscles because they spend a lot of time working out and training to achieve this certain look. And your goal is to enhance that as much as possible with your retouching. So I'm just going through here. So like on the hip area here, we're just going to tighten that up. Mix those colors a little bit better. But we're still staying within the highlights. So we're in the highlighted area. And so here, we're going to go more into the midtones and then deeper into the shadows and mix those and just keep going. So obviously, if I was doing this for a client, I would be a little bit more precise. But since this is a live that I plan on just re-uploading so that you guys will actually watch it, I don't want this to be, ridiculously long. So I'm going to try and do this as quick as possible. Now, as time goes on, the more you do this is why I say it's so important to find images that you can edit and practice on, is because the better you get at this level of editing, the more proficient you're going to be. It takes a certain amount of time to develop the skill set, but it's not rocket science. Anyone can learn this. And I just kind of jump back and forth, whatever I see. But usually I pick an area and I work on that one area first, and then I'll move on to the next area, especially when it's working with, like I said, fitness models or models in general. And a lot of times when I'm working with, makeup lines or fashion designers, they got a specific look that they're trying to achieve. So you really want to spend a lot of time doing as best as you can to ensure the client's happy. So I think we got everything. But I'm going to go ahead and go over the fingers so I can mix that up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to turn our texture layer back on, and we can start to see if there's any colors that we missed, and we can just go in a little bit better and still mix those down. Looks good so far. So let's turn off our helper layer. And let's zoom all the way out. So just like we did before, let's turn this layer off, stay on our lower layer. We're going to go up here and grab our lasso tool, and we're just going to pick an area. And we're going to just mask it. And then the first time you're going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And remember, we started at 10. So now we're going to bring this up to 30. That's close enough. And then pick another area. Right click within the mask. And just keep going. Gaussian blur. So I could do her whole arm here. So we're just going to go ahead and just get as much of it as we can. All right. Oops. So you can zoom in a little bit if you need to make sure you're being precise with what you're choosing. So I'm just going to go over her back here real quick, up to the neck. And then we're going to zoom in on the face. And we're going to lasso the forehead. Then come around here, around the hairline. then the cheek. And sometimes you will alternate these if you think it's blurring it too much. You know, you can always go back to your Gaussian blur and then choose a lower amount. And then you can also feather it, you know, to adjust that amount as well. You don't want to blur out any part of the body that you want to be seen. But right now what we're working on is just the color, so this shouldn't be a problem. All right, so let's turn our texture back on. And let's zoom all the way out. And this is our before. And this is our after. Before and after. Now, again, like I said, the images are going to be a little flat because of the fact that you have done all of this, you know, frequency separation and things like that. So then the next thing you'd probably want to do is to create a stamp layer. And then you can go in and do your dodging and burning, or if you're going to do any liquifying or anything like that, you know, this is, you know, one of the steps you can take. So if you're going to use your dodge and burn at this point, just click on dodge and burn. And then here we're going to add our black and white. And we're going to push down the reds so we can see. There we go, that's good. So then starting off with our dodge, 100% opacity, 2% flow, a little bit larger brush. I'm just going to brush here on the cheek a little bit, on the leg here, inside of the leg, right up in here. So all of those areas where I see that there's highlights. Then grab my burn. Then I'm going to start to give shape back to the muscles. And just find your dark areas. Just kind of follow along that path. And then once you turn your helper layer off, you'll start to be able to see this a little bit better to determine how much more you need to go in to burn a little bit more. Just go over that until you get it just the way you want it. So let's before and after. And come all the way down here and let's take a look at our original before, and that's our after. And that's only with a few minutes of work. So, I mean, it didn't take us that long to get to this point. So, you know, realistically, you know, like I said before, this is something that you guys could do really, really quickly, you know, with just a few actions built in and that you can install into Photoshop. And then obviously, yes, you can then go further. You can go in and you can enhance the eyes and the makeup and the lipstick and all those other things you can do. But these actions are just to kind of get you started so that you can start off with, you know, smoothing out your skin and, you know, doing the other things that ever one of your clients is going to want, you know, from your deliverables. So hopefully, you know, you guys learned something in this live. If so, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and ring that bell. All right, guys, I will catch you in the next live. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, take care of your loved ones, and get out there and create something amazing. All right, it's been your boy Rome. Peace. I'm out.